It gives me very, very great pleasure to now introduce the best man, Mike Pattison. That's Pattison with 2 T's. Who will share with us, I'm sure, some of the more colorful details about Sean.
Thank you, Ron. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mike, and I am the best man. I would like to start by complimenting Chris on how amazing she looks. As for Sean, we tried. As this is my first time being a best man, I was a little worried as to how long my speech should last. So I asked around, and the general consensus was that I should go on for about as long as it takes for the groom to perform his manly duties in the bedroom. Oh. In which case, I think I may have overrun already. Before I begin embarrassing Sean too much, I would like a little participation from the new couple. Chris, I'd like you to raise your right hand for me. And I'd like you to place it on the table just in front of you and between you and Sean. On the table. There you go. It's not so hard. Okay, now Sean, I'd like you to raise your left hand. And I'd like you to place your hand on top of Chris's hand. And I'd like you guys to keep those there, just like that, until the end of my speech. Okay? I'll explain later, don't worry. Okay. Sean, we've known each other since grade 3. Our soon-to-be friendship first started one day over a game of soccer. Sean, being the competitive person that he is, tried to score the winning goal. Fortunately for my team, and unfortunately for Sean's ego, I made the save. As we were returning from recess, Sean decided to take out his frustration by picking a fight. Seeing as I was about twice the size of him, and I was pretty much twice the size of anybody else in my grade, Sean decided to climb on top of a green box and jump on my back in a surprise attack to put the odds more in his favor. Sean soon realized that picking a fight with someone twice his size was not a good idea and proceeded to get thoroughly beaten up. Sometimes when things don't go Sean's way, he has been known to embellish details a little bit to make himself look better. This was one such case, and when Sean's dad asked what happened, well, Sean explained his alternate version of what happened, pretty much detailing how he was minding his own business and the giant kid jumped him out of nowhere for no reason. Little did Sean know that his dad would actually come to my house to yell at my father over the incident. Let's just say that after a quick discussion with my father and I on what really happened, John was on his way and Sean wound up with more bruises that day, this time on his backside. I must say that made for an interesting first meeting of our parents. John, do you remember that? I do. This competitive spirit that Sean and I had back then continued over the years, though it's not such a violent form anymore. It has led to a very close and very interesting friendship. We have competed in many sports and many, many video games over the years, trying to best one another. Sometimes to avoid conflict with Sean, I would just let him win so he could feel superior. I never let him know that I was allowing him to win. It was just easier to do that than to see his temper emerge when he repeatedly lost at something. Well, tonight, I think he's finally caught on to this game and turned the tables on me. Tonight, Sean has finally declared me the best man to boast my ego. But as my prize, I get to stand up here and read this speech, while Sean sits comfortably over there as the second best man in the room here tonight and has his stunning bride as his prize. Who really got the best deal on this one? Being the best man is a big responsibility and one that should not be taken lightly. So I conducted many hours of research to make sure that I wouldn't forget anything and came up with this list of duties. Number 1, arrange the bachelor party. The less said about that night, the better, but I think that everyone that attended will agree that the burgers sure tasted delicious. Thank you. Number 2, on the wedding day, bring a credit card and loads of cash in case there's anything that the groom forgot to pay for. Well, since I've known Sean, I've had to do this, so it's nothing new. I just don't understand how his debit card never works when I'm around, but it worked yesterday. Number 3, ensure the groom is dressed, sober, punctual, has his shoelaces tied, his fly done up, and his face and hair in order. Well, I accomplished everything but the last task, which I feel is quite unfair. If God couldn't do it, what chances do I have to do his face and hair in order? Along the way, I also came across these words of wisdom. Marriage asks that a couple take each other for better or worse. And Sean, you really couldn't have done any better. And Chris, I suppose it could have been worse. Now, I'm sure a number of men here today have been a best man before, but how many of you received written guidelines from the bride-to-be? I would like to read you this short email that Chris sent me prior to the wedding. Dear Mike, I was very pleased when Sean asked you to be the best man for our wedding. I have known you for some time now, and I can't think of anyone more charming, better looking, or downright sexy than you for this crucial day. But I want you to remember that this is our wedding day, and I don't want something that you might say or do to spoil it. With this in mind, please take note of the following, and I'm sure we will all have a wonderful day. Do not get drunk. Do not use bad language. Do not tell dirty jokes. Do not sing. Do not let Sean sing. Do not mention Sean's little problem. Do not let Sean drink tequila. Do not let Sean drink whiskey. Do not let Sean get drunk. Do not let Sean play fruit basket. And finally, make sure you keep your clothes on, and definitely make sure that Sean keeps his clothes on. Lots of love, Chris. That's Chris White. I still remember the first time Sean introduced me to her. I already knew roughly who she was, and as he had mentioned her many times before, many more times than anybody else from theater, which probably would have been my first clue that she was someone special to him. But that night at Rax, when I met her in person and saw the way Sean's eyes lit up, and when he saw her, and the way he acted all awkward around her, I knew it was meant to be. So it was my duty as Sean's friend and wingman for the evening to help him get the girl. I did the first thing that came to my mind to help him out. I got really drunk and walked straight up to her and flat out asked her if she liked him. I'm sure she's nodding. This is honestly true. Luckily, she'd already had a few drinks as well, and she actually answered my question and admitted to liking Sean. I then explained how Sean liked her and why they should be together. Keep in mind, this probably sounded more like a drunken slur than the well-articulated speech that I felt I was presenting to her. Needless to say, she didn't agree on the spot to start dating him, but she did have an interesting icebreaker to talk to Sean about the next time they met, and asked him what I was thinking that night. But I have to say it worked, and the rest is history, which brings us to this beautiful wedding. Ladies and gentlemen, before we finish, there are obviously some very important people here today, without whom very little of this would have been possible. And the great thing is, as the evening progresses, most of us will get to spend more and more time talking to them. So please join me in a very special toast to the bar staff. In all seriousness, though, much thanks and appreciation must go out to the people who worked hard to make this wedding happen. The bridesmaids, the groomsmen, the parents of the bride and groom, the MC Ron, and anyone else who helped out in any way that I may have forgotten. And lastly, we must thank Kevin as well. He may not be a woman, but when it comes time to helping out at a wedding, he really knows how to crack the whip. And of course, we should not forget the new Mr. and Mrs. Pettipas. Today is a day when each of us wishes the happy couple well. Being human, they will have their disagreements. Life being what it is, there will be sad moments as well as glad. Yet I know that today we are all wishing them happiness and health in those years to come. And I'm sure that the love between Sean and Chris will be strong enough to last forever. I'm sure at this point you're all wondering why I've had the couple keep their hands placed the way they have. Well, this was the last time in their relationship that Sean will ever have the upper hand. If everyone could please raise the glass. May your love be modern enough to survive the times and old-fashioned enough to last forever. Cheers.